cost effectiveness associated with a well-maintained bunded tank is that you'll avoid downtime with your company. You can't really afford to have an area of your site that you can't use. Also, for health and safety reasons, you don't really want to have any sort of vapours or any slips and trips hazards for your employees. The environmental liabilities associated with an oil spill can be huge. So really you're talking about maybe a couple of £1,000 maintaining a good tank as opposed to what could be hundreds of thousands of pounds having to mitigate an oil spill. For the risks of vandalism and keeping oil storage secure, your best defence against that is to have a well-constructed bund in an area of site where it's easy to access and maintain, but it's going to be away from public site.
We have a designated refuelling area within the compound, so that consists of a hard stand, and our actual fuel tanks are integrally bunded Bowsers, which means that the external tank is capable of containing 110% of the inner tank. We also have spill kits then located adjacent to the refuelling area. We've a specific team trained in refuelling, so there's only a certain amount of people that are permitted to refuel on site, and those people would have undergone the training and also would be trained in use of the spill kit.
Fuel oil is stored in plastic containers and tanks, and it is stored in a place that is well away from water, so that you don't want to see any pollution incidents occur. So there's always a couple of safety valves on it to make sure that if one is left on, the other one is closed, so there's no leakages. You do not want fuel oil going into water courses because it kills fish and causes a lot of environmental damage.
So this is our very small diesel storage tank for the farm. We're not a big farm and we don't like using diesel, so we use as little as possible. But we've put it up on this concrete step here to keep it away from traffic, so something's much less likely to bump into it. We've got these posts here to keep it off any boom that was coming past, and it's a bunded tank, it's a new tank, and it's a manual pump, which makes you realise every time you're using diesel, because you can't just switch on an electric pump, you have to manually pump it into the tractor, which does you good.
The capacity of that tank, I think, is 12,000 litres. If it leaks, it will go into the spare capacity in the tank, in the bund itself. It will take whatever goes in there as 100% capacity. If it didn't have that, the tank would need to have a bund built round it that would take the volume of material, of oil that's in the tank into the bund. But these tanks are self-contained. Best practice is to locate tanks as far away from river and water, as far away as you can, so that in the event of a leak, it's not going to find its way into water courses or into rivers. The response spill kit we have there is, again, in the event of any oil spills, we've got pads and mattresses and all sorts of bits and pieces here that we can mop up any minor spills there and then before it gets into the ground. All our staff are trained on oil response. And obviously if there was a major response, that takes it into a different level. We would need to get the experts in to deal with major oil spills. But that's a different thing altogether.
So we store a small amount of fuel on site, and it's contained within a double-skinned bunded tank. The most important thing about the tank positioning is that it's away from reversing vehicles and vehicle movements, and we've managed to achieve that. It's positioned in a safe, secure area. We have an emergency response kit situated next to the tank. And the second most thing that we considered was important was staff training on management of the oil. So we've got a facility that's contained and safe to use, but the other influence is human nature. So when we're managing and filling and emptying the oil tank, we've got quite strict procedures that staff follow just to make sure that there isn't any human error and spillage as a result of mishaps. Now, if there is an accidental spillage, because people are people, we've got an emergency spill kit adjacent to it, and the floor area is actually bunded as well, so that any immediate spillages would be captured by the member of staff or the warehouse manager. Our tank's stored indoors, so it's under cover, so we don't have issues with rainfall and water, which is a positive for us. And we keep the tanks securely locked, so that stops theft, but it also stops misuse by third parties should someone come on site and choose to tamper with it.
What we'd recommend to businesses who want to prevent an oil spill is to really think about where you're situating your tank, to keep up to date with the regulations. NetRegs is a really good site for that. In terms of where to situate your tank, try to think about where the floodplains are. You want to avoid that because tanks can float and they'll come away from the moorings and you can get leaks in the pipes then. Also, you want to think about fire risks and risks from vandalism. You really want to make sure you've got a secondary containment system up, so if the worst should happen and you have a leak, it's just a case of getting it out the bund rather than having an oil spill. But really keep up to date with the regulations. That's your best protection.